As I've mentioned in the past, we have a new show format for each week. This week is Go with the Flow, which means people will come on, show their automations. It doesn't have to be N8N, it can be any form of automation that works in terms of aiding their business. It could be APIs, it could be make.com, it could be Zapier, it could be other things. Today's guest is going to be Dorian. This show will be co-hosted with Ritu Java. Everyone loves Ritu. Right now she's on a plane going over Tokyo, so she won't be able to do this week. But just to give you a rundown of the shows, the first show of the month on the Tuesday at 4 p.m. live will be myself and Adam Heist for the Broadmat show. Week 2, Dorian, of course, will be there alongside Sim, the Product Opinion Boys, as well for Main Image Monthly. Week 3 is the Blueprint, which is Andrew Bell, myself, and of course Awana. And then week 4 will be myself and Ritu Go with Flow. Anyway, let's get straight into it. Dorian, welcome to the show.
Hey Danny, thank you. Thank you as always for inviting me.
You're more than welcome. So today, Go with the Flow, we're going to be talking about N8N and flows. I asked you to come on because you do a lot more around N8N than I do, but I built tools to use N8N because I don't like using it. So I think it's good to cover from both sides on this. Do you want to give a breakdown of what you've been doing in terms of N8N? There's a lot of stuff you've been doing at the moment.
Yeah, truth be told, I got into N8N very recently, maybe like a month ago.
Yeah.
And it was just out of curiosity. And I was introduced to N8N at Seller Sessions.
Yeah.
And I thought that's brilliant. You can automate so many things, workflows. It looks really complicated. You look at all those graphs, all those connections, and you think, oh wow. But I started by doing simple things in it. Just send an email and review this, analyze this, summarize this. Create a spreadsheet. And slowly, I was able to, within a week, build a clear understanding of the basic nodes and how to connect them. And after that, I was just running with it, creating automation, trying things, breaking things. And then I was introduced to Replit. And I combined both of those, Replit and N8N, and recently started developing some very simple apps. So from no code, like no experience in code, I was able to actually develop some apps that are working pretty well, not perfect. And I know a lot of people are interested in it, and I get questions all the time on my WhatsApp, on my AI Club for Amazon, and how to do it, what can you automate? And I think we can show today, Danny, people like this. It's actually not black magic.
No, it's not. And we'll go into it in a minute. But why don't you bring up some of the stuff that you're doing, and then I'll bring up the flow builder and explain my side of things. Because I think it's good to have the yin and the yang. Like you, a lot more experience with N8N, but then I built a tool to use N8N because I don't like N8N. Does that make sense? Because I want to encourage people to do more automation. So do you want to share your screen and run through some of the things you've been building?
Yeah, no problem. So I'll start with some simple stuff. And I'll show you exactly how I started. So truth be told, you can start, as I said, very simple stuff. Like you just need to understand what N8N does. It's a very simple process. You have nodes which you connect. You can find the nodes here. You have all sorts of, you have AI nodes, OpenAI, you have stuff like Gmail nodes, you have stuff like Sheets. So all these nodes are here for you to just drag, create a spreadsheet, drag and connect it to something, right? It's as simple as that. So the main thing really about N8N is figuring out what you want to automate and what the process is going to look like. And it's all linear process. This is the beginning, this is the end. Right? So in this simple workflow, we are sending data from which is Amazon image URL, and then the image is downloaded and it's edited by GPT, and then it's being sent back to the website. Right? Very simple stuff. So the way it works, as you can see, it's sending the data, the prompt is created, and it just goes in a linear process. So you can start with very simple stuff, very simple stuff. And let's see what it does. So let's say this is what the image looks like. Oh, so we have kit supplements, right? So this is the main image from Amazon, which has been downloaded. And then we have the prompt here, which I built myself. So you can actually prompt all of this. If I go here, this is the prompt that I have, very simple. You can just paste in the prompt and it's going to edit this image. That's going to take a moment. So the most important thing is just to understand what you want to automate and what data comes in and what handles the data. Most of the time, you're going to plug in some sort of AI to your data to transform it. It's all about transforming data. Let's wait a moment. Let's see what it does. So you see, this is the main image. And we should have that. And I'll show you some of the stuff, a little bit more complex stuff that I'm working. So what I'm doing also is I am combining N8N with Replit. So Replit is a vibe coding platform. For those that don't know what vibe coding is, it's literally coding with prompts. You don't need to know coding. You can simply say, I want an app that does X and Y, and it's going to build it. The more, obviously, information you give it, the more detail it will be. So I'm combining the logic from N8N with the front end of Replit. So you can see now we should be able to see the image somewhere here. And this is the transform main image created. Very simple workflow, right? Send an image, transform it, bam, done. So that's how you can start, very simple. And that's what I was doing initially, just very simple workflows. But as you can see now, I'm going to leave without saving. I'm building a lot of these workflows. I'm just trying to figure out what can I do, right? I have onboarding workflows. I have hypothesis, prompt generator that generates. But the one that currently I'm mostly working on is this one, which is scraping Amazon data and analyzing it. So as you can see, it's very complex, but you can start building very, very slowly. Like, okay, what data do I need? How do I need to transform it? Where do I need to connect it next? And where is it being sent? So that's really how I started with N8N. And the great thing is you don't need to know a lot of these details. You can go to Claude. So I can go to Claude, and I think you're going to talk a little bit about this, Danny. I can go to Claude and just simply say I'm building N8N workflow, and I will explain what it does, what I want it to do, and then N8N is going to give you all the information about how to connect it, what kind of code to put in. As far as you can create the entire JSON file for you to paste within the N8N. Yeah. What I would suggest, if anyone's serious about N8N, is to start with Claude and trying to understand, build something simple, and get familiar with nodes, because a lot of times you want to build stuff manually. Like you want to find out, okay, the fun really of N8N is just trying to figure out and building the entire workflow yourself. Obviously, you have to debug stuff, which Claude is really good for debugging if there's an issue. So if something's not working. The other thing you can do is you can simply download it, the entire, and put it into Claude and say, what's not working here? Something's not working. It's not work, and Claude can give you an information or direction of what to fix. So start building slowly, simple automations, and then get familiar with the nodes. Then introduce another one, And very soon, within a couple of weeks, you'll be able to build very complex automations. Then what you can do is use this. So this is the logic, this is the brain. Give this to Replit and say, build me an app around this logic. So now I can, something that we build is very simple stuff. We build this logic, and then we went to Replit and we said, build us the website for this, build us an app. And we actually were able to build a full-on app which provides you with with analysis for review analysis and other things for Amazon, right? So it scrapes reviews, it analyzes reviews, it analyzes Reddit and all sorts of data points. So I built it in n8n, and the only thing I needed is just some sort of a front end people can click and use it. As simple as that.
No, it's good. I mean, you made a good point there. You know, like you should learn more about n8n. The reason I built this tool is there's a few reasons. Is people's learning skills are not always adjusted to certain things, right? So, for instance, let's say that you're not super technical, but you want to get some automation work done, but equally you're not clear of what you want. Right, so one, you're not clear. Two, you've got to learn a bit about n8n, and then three is trying to work out how do you, if you don't, how do you explain it. So that's why I kind of built something, because I've got an engineering team I can just hand off to. So I agree absolutely with you, but then there's also, you know, one of the things I learned about sellers is not all sellers have got the time to do stuff. If you look at going back a few years, do you remember when everyone was going, yeah, I'm going to build some chatbots? And they were quite technical back then, right? To a certain degree. We're getting more technical now, but it's just that availability of time, the learning curve and carving out that time. I think with someone like you, you've got right into n8n. You love n8n, right? I love Claude. So I kind of turned Claude into, bend it to my will as my main platform. Like, I do stuff with Claude that people don't necessarily think you can with Claude, because they're investing their time spread across all different platforms, where I've gone, right, I'm going all the way in. So what I'll do is I'll show you the flip side of it, but like what Dorian said, like he knows n8n, and that's a good thing. But let's say that you don't know n8n, but you want to build stuff. This is another way of doing it to be visual, because you can always hand this off to an engineer or programmer, someone on Upwork, because the technical part of this isn't always, it depends how complex it is, but for basic flows, you know, a junior programmer should be able to handle these tasks, you know, plugging in APIs and stuff like that. But let me share my screen, and I'll go over a bit of a workflow that I use, and I also use it to generate ideas, like how can we do this better, how can we do this better, how can we do this better. So if I just share my screen, so what I've got in here is I built a flow builder, and inside of that is detailed project instructions, and it also includes what are called gates. They're like quality gates to double check the work, etc., etc. These files are here are some files that I would scrape and then built the project. So it's a combination of files that have videos from advanced videos from YouTube, and then scraped a lot of the help pages and information pages and techniques and news, etc., off n8n. And then that's been synthesized down. Now, if you look at the size of the project, if I'd have done a scraping project and just had used, you know, PDFs or documents or whatever you decide to use, that project will be at capacity, but it's at 1% because it's been engineered down to optimize for space so that you can, of course, add to projects. So I'll start by just showing a couple of things that I built. An example would be here is a web scraper. Just go, is it this one? That might have just been the logic behind it. Let's go back here. Let me go and have a look. What else have I got here? Repurposing. Let's have a look what we've got here. Here we go. So an example of this, let's just say that you're new to N8N and you want to build flows, but you don't know what you want to put together. So it's going to take a bit of time to work out what you want. Like Dorian worked out, it's like, what do I need in this flow to build this? So then you would have to go into N8N and kind of work out what you're going to need to build the flow to a certain degree, right? You do have, I think it's called N8N chat, which kind of basically you say what you want and it will generally pick out what is required in order to build out that flow. So if I go up to the top here, what do I put in here? This was a Superflows template. I just repurposed that, not for use. And then I also have an option in there to deploy visual examples as well and handoff documentation. So if I go down to here, what you'll see is there's a visual version of what, you get a visual version of what can be put together, and then you can start asking questions. So for instance, if I look here, Scraper Claude projects distribution pipeline, it will go through, and then they'll also build out the JSON file that you just cut and paste into N8N. Here's a good example here. What it does, it also adds the stickies of where to plug in. Now I've been working on it today, so I will run it, but let's see if it works properly. Because I've been updating the logic in the process, because to preserve tokens, because what it was doing before, it would produce the flow, then it will go into doing the JSON file instantly, but you may decide you want to prompt prior to that. So if I go back in up to here, this is where I was playing around with this one earlier on, N8 project planning. Let's show another one as a good example, and then we get into it. So these are various different agents that I built as ideas. Look at that upstream. Claude, do you get a lot of timeouts, Dorian, with Claude at the moment?
Oh yeah, so many.
I've just upgraded. Let's have a look what we got here. Here you go. Here's another one. So basically, whilst it explains, I explain what I want here, and then it will give you the visual explanation. It will output this HTML, and then it will tell you the setup priority, what's in there, what is required, etc. And then what I've also done is put a gate in there to deal with JSON errors, because you're going to burn a lot of tokens creating the JSON file. The more complex it is, you cut and paste it over into Claude and into N8N, then you find out that you've got to go back and debug, and then you've got to rerun it again. So just as we'll test the workflow now, I'm not sure, because I was working on this prior to starting the show. Build me a flow using the project instructions, and don't forget to use the quality gate. What I'd like you to do is to build me a flow where we take the transcript from the podcast. Then I want you to turn that podcast into show notes, and then turn the show notes into content that can be put out onto LinkedIn, Facebook, and of course, Instagram. So I use a voice recorder because it's easier as well, and that helps with converting natural language when it works. Let's see if it's going to work. You can see it's, yeah. Sometimes it plays up, so I would use the voice here. Yeah, typical because we're live, right? Okay, using the gate and the project instructions and the knowledge base, can you build me a flow where we can take a transcript from a podcast and turn it into show notes, and then repurpose it for a LinkedIn post? I just make it a bit shorter. Bring that over, take that out, and let's see how this works. Now we're live. So what it's done here, in terms of the gate, it asks me the next question. Do I want to do minimal processing? So essential flow diagram, which preserves tokens, medium processing, which is a HTML wireframe, or a JSON file, or choose both. And then there's heavy processing where it can look like the NAN. So what I can do is, to give you an idea, we'll start with just the essential flow. Okay, so manual trigger or file reader grabs your transcript. Step 2, AI split. Single OpenAI call generated both outputs simultaneously. Output, save the show notes, LinkedIn post to separate file variables. Key components, trigger, function, OpenAI split, save. As you are more heavily involved with NAN than me, does that make sense to you? Or are we missing a trick? It's good because I can then update the instructions because I'm going to give this away anyway.
Yeah, and it's pretty simple, right? Yeah, totally. And I think the one good thing is, if you're not, I would say at anyone that is doing this thing, a lot of times it's worth asking a question, even in Claude, like, what is a trigger? What does
Yeah.
a function do? What is a split? If you, the moment, like, get yourself familiar with these nodes, so very quickly you'll be able to say, okay, I need this here, I need that. So don't just take the data as it comes and just, trying to pass it on without trying to learn anything. I would say anything we get in from AI, Claude in this particular example, try to understand it. Don't be just like copy paste, because I think that's like, we don't remove the curiosity. That's what I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. So then if we wanted to now, we can expand on this. We've got the general idea. We've got a visual diagram of what's going on. I can say, can we now expand on this flow, not just having the LinkedIn post, but can we add to this the repurposing of the show notes to be, compatible for Instagram, as an example, right? Now, most of you won't do this because you'll write proper prompts, but in my instructions, it allows me to speak more natural language and get away with it because it's how it's been set up. So let's see if this actually works. I've just kind of rambled there, right? So now it's going to do an Instagram carousel, but it's added TikTok in there. So yeah, let's just leave TikTok in there. Okay, so now next I want to be able to do is then I can say build the flow using the medium for the HTML output. Let's see what happens here. The reason I did that is to show the different steps, because if you don't, let's say I've got the upgrade, but if you're on the 20 a month, you've only got a certain amount until you're in the sim bin for the 5 hours, right, Dorian? How many times have you hit and realized, shit, basically you maxed out, you got to wait another 5 hours to get onto Claude?
Yeah, constantly. I think I'm on the highest paid
Yeah.
subscription and still getting issues constantly.
So now we've got this. I want to tweak this because we need to make sure this doesn't have the part of the gate that I would normally put in there. That's going to be mobile ready and also be able to create separators between each of these nodes here, because you can see there's overlapping. Yeah, so I'll fix that. So what's he saying here? Multi-purpose platform, repurpose workflow summary. Transform podcast transcript into 4 platform-ready content pieces, comprehensive show. See, this is another way of learning as well, getting that visual down so when you do move into NAN, you've got a general idea, because you've got phase 1, input trigger, retranscript, prepare content, AI multiple format, etc., etc. So let's just move to the next stage. Okay. Let's see if it works down here. Deploy the JSON file for this, but ensure that you use the gate to protect the code. So that's approaching the medium threshold on this conversation, right? Now we can optimize for this later, but this is purely that what this actually does, if it works when I cut and paste it in there, because sometimes I have to debug, but if that works, you haven't got to spec that out to that guy on Upwork if you're not going to be implementing everything. You've got a visual framework here, and you've also got the N8N project that person can see, and then they can then determine, oh, okay, we might have to change this, and then they can refine those, refine which nodes to use, to change the models, etc., etc. So it's kind of, it's not a fast track, but it helps you as you go along. What do you want to build? These are the components that are being used. You've got an artifact that shows the output, and then you've also got the JSON file that you can hand over. Once that's done, I'll cut and paste it into N8N. Let's just quickly clear this. Once that's done, I'm not sure if I've added it in there yet, but then you can create a handoff document. So you can then, or even you can ask it to, what job description would I post on, say, Upwork for this work to be completed, what skills they would need, etc. So it kind of puts some safety rails in place for you. All right, let's have a look. JSON file complete, saying OpenAI, cost impact. You can probably get that down 50 cents to $1.50. Let's see if this works. This is the, clear that, just reload, and then I'll wipe it again because it'll add the previous flow in there. So clear that out and paste that in, and there you go. And so basically you've now got these. I did put the gate in because there was a couple of times where the nodes weren't connecting. I just think it was hallucinating, but at least you've got something that you can give to the programmer, the coder that you hire off whatever platform it is. So you've got a few things here. So you can, of course, you can give them the conversation, the Claude conversation. They'll be able to see what you're trying to achieve in there. You'll be able to see the HTML wireframe. You'll be able to give them a copy of the JSON file. And if you wanted to, I've not tried it with this version, but let's see if we can hand off the gate on this. Let's go back here. Can you put out to the artifact window in a Notion format, but make it a markdown file, a short description, handoff document, technical, that can be given to engineering or programming team? I may not have added this yet.
Yeah, I think one good term also for anyone that has an idea, wants to build something, is product requirement document. Whenever you say PRD, product, it will give the full on analysis and directions for the development team.
Yeah. So there you have it. I mean, then all you're going to end up doing is you can take out the artifact. So let's go back to the artifact, because you can remix artifacts as well. So let me go back into, let's say that you wanted to share that. You just publish it. This is still processing. Bottom line, complete engineering handoff document ready, contains all technical specifications, deployment requirements, testing protocols, and scaling considerations. Engineering team can implement and maintain without additional context. So let's say I want to publish this. It goes for anything. Like when I'm working on, yesterday, it took me 10 minutes. We're using our Curve Tools design system, I did a login page and an option that I can publish the show notes and the URL to the podcast. And it literally, you just cut and paste it in and it does it. But I'll show you those in a moment. So now this is an artifact. If you click customize artifact, you end up taking that into your own Claude project. So whilst it's a bit annoying with Claude that you can't really share projects, one of the other things you can do, not only that you can bring that artifact into your own Claude setup, you can actually build front ends to your projects. Did you know that, Dorian? So you can build, yeah. So basically, as long as the artifact's live, if let's say you're building something and you want someone to test it, and you've got a dedicated project, instead of sharing the project, just build an interface so they can play around with it. And that's quite handy. So there are some limitations with Claude, but that gives you a general idea of what can be done. Over to you, Dorian. What were some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I think what you show is really, definitely useful. And you made a good point that a lot of people want to automate things and have ideas what they want to automate, but they don't understand the process and don't know what to start. I got a message a couple of days ago from one of my friends, really successful Amazon seller, and he just dropped me a message and he said, Dorian, I want to automate most of our internal processes, and he gave me a lot of ideas in a voice note and asked me if it's possible and how to do it. And what I responded to him was literally what you just explained is, first of all, just organize your thoughts. Organize your processes, and that's the main thing. The worst thing you can do is just start working or just trying to wing it, because things then will get really complicated and it will be hard to go back and fix things. So the first thing is really planning, trying to understand, okay, how do I get from A to B? And then how do I get from B to C, from C to D? And that's the main thing. Understand like what you're showing visually. And that's the great thing about an 8N, it's actually visual, right? It's visual. You just connect dots. That's what it is. So just trying to understand that first. Okay, if I'm trying to, let's say I'm trying to organize some of my data so my team has access to all the data and they can just request it simply, or that data gets populated automatically in some sort of a spreadsheet and then being sent to our ClickUp or something. First of all, even on paper, just figure out, okay, where's the data? How does it have to be structured? What am I looking for? What will be the requests? And then and I think the most important thing is, how will people use it? So how are we actually going to use it? What kind of requests are we going to make? Put it all on paper. Try to figure it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can even, scrape on a notebook, take a picture, upload it to Claude and say, this is what I'm trying to build and it needs to do X and Y and Z, and then start from there. And the other thing good that you mentioned is you can ask AI to improve it. Like, what else can we, because a lot of times you're not aware of the possibilities of these workflows. So how can we actually improve it? How can we make it better? And then suddenly something comes, like Claude will tell you, like, how about we add this or make this simpler, or we can add this additional feature. And you're like, I didn't think of that. I didn't even think of that. So that's another good exercise, is just ask, what else can we do? How can we improve it?
No, absolutely. So let me just quickly show you this, because you used Replit, didn't you? This is something that took maybe 10 minutes to build, because I built out a design system for it. So if I just go to, so if we have a look at these here. So basically I built a design system under our curve tools. Some of the people would have seen them. sell a session. So I wanted to have a login page for the automation process of this. So the show finishes. There's called AI Producer. So it cleans up everything, and it runs out the audio. It also does compression, EQ, etc., etc. But what I want to be able to do is have a system that goes with all the other tools that we use internally that I've built. So this was but literally, I say use the design system, the curve design system. Yeah, look, using the curve design system, update the design, because basically I was playing around with an idea before, but it was before I finished the design system. Then basically there's this one here, which I did what we call a retrofit, i.e. I played around with some ideas, but I then updated it because now the show is set to do 4 set shows a month, and then there's an option for a custom title, because when we're recording now on Riverside, it does produce AI show notes, but it's not in a sequential order. It needs a bit of clearing up. So basically what happens, you can post the raw show notes here and then cut and paste the audio URL. And then basically, this isn't live because this is just a working example of it. You just select the show title because they're set. So today's would be Go With The Flow. Cut and paste the audio, post this live. And then you cut and paste the raw live, the show notes. And then I can then process and format, and then I can decide whether I want to publish instantly or I'll publish on another day. So this is pretty quick. Once you've got the platform ready to how you want to do it, if I go back into here, let's just say that we want to build something else really quick, right? So if I say, build me an app using the curve design system logo, and then use a file uploader which will accept .csv files. Now it tells me the technical constraints of what is required, yes? So we're always preserving the tokens. Token impact of this conversation, estimated tokens is 40% of the budget. Risk hitting rates limits are low. I can build a working CSV analyzer with Curve, and it's still obviously processing at the moment. So when that's done, so what this is again, this is guardrail gates, yeah? You put those in place because let's say you go to build something and it's going to require a lot more architecture to develop. When you do no code, as you know, Dorian, right? The context window. Yeah. Most no code platforms don't actually work as you think they would, because there comes a point you build too fast and then you've got to roll back to a previous state, right? Now, what tends to happen, it isn't examining all of the code. So even if you say deploy but put guardrails in place to protect the logic and unaffected code other than, updating the design system, UI, front end, etc., etc., it will say yes, it'll give you the answer, and then it will go and do it, and it won't update it. Now, that could be a hard cache issue, which is easy to solve, but in a lot of cases, what it's actually doing, as the code base gets larger, the situation is it will tell you, yes, I'm going to put guardrails in place, but it's only inspecting the percentage of the code. And the more you build, the more code you generate, that window gets smaller. So you get stuck in this loop in the project, right? And that goes for Poe and all the different ones. So ideally, what you want to be able to do is you would start wireframing first. So start with a simple wireframe. Like you said, you do a PRD, yeah? I've got another bot that I built a project where I've scraped YouTube, and there are certain prompts that a guy uses. He's an amazing user interface designer, 15 years experience. So I've also got those setup prompts as well. Then I'll go through the process of doing a wireframe. But this is just, for now, just for a quick demonstration. So full version requirements, your engineering team would need server-side file storage, find database integration, API endpoints, if external data process is needed. Browser type, prototype now, immediate testing, validation, build full spec, quick clarification. What type of CSV analysis would you like to do? Data visualization, filter calculation, and export functionality. So I haven't even thought that through because we're on the pod, yeah? Like you said, you've got to think about what you want. I've just said build a design system. So what I will do is, let's start by turning it into a wireframe first. Use the design system, but of course, no back-end technology. So visually, I want to see in the artifact the curve logo, the design system. Just call it Keyword Crusher as the tool name, and then I will take a look from there, and then we can exchange ideas of what to do next. There we go. So it's now going to draft it. Now it won't have the proper logo in there at the moment because we're not hosting this. This is just the artifact. So we have certain things in that design system is just a kickstart to get the ideas going and flowing, right? Because then I pass this on to design polish the UI, then it goes to engineering, and then they'll check any issues for deployment. But I think Sim posted this earlier on today about GenSpark. Have you seen their agentic browser?
No, not yet.
Off-the-shelf MCPs. Agents built into the browser. Let me see if I can. We've got it here. Yeah, look at this. I've just plugged it in. I haven't had a chance to have a proper play. Look. And what I've been paying on Manus is, this is what, $25 a month. I just downgraded Manus and added this, but you've got super agents. You can also add here, I've had Notion and a few others. Then when you go to here, go down, you got the MCPs. This should be quite interesting here. Look, execute automated tasks, browser operations through natural language instructions. So I haven't set up the MCP with Claude yet because I'm waiting for the team to sort out our repro at GitHub and tie that in first, and then we'll work out what we do next. But looking at this, look at this, incredible. Look, integrations.
It's funny how quickly Manus became obsolete since the summer
That's
session,
what I said to you. Like, do you remember a little while ago I said we're on Manus now? By Christmas it'll be in a museum alongside the Nokia phone. That's how fast shit is moving, right? Where was I? I'm lost where I was. Here we go. Go back to, oh yeah, here we go. There you go. So, not perfect, but it's good enough to get the vibe down, yeah? You can see here, I'll update the Glacian cards and then basically the background of the table. So these will be transparent, but it gives you a good start point. You know, you get the visual demonstration of it, then you can play around and then start adding so you can browse files. At the moment, it's just a wireframe and it's not being activated to accept the .csv.
Yeah, but that's super important also. It's once you use the backend workflow, but also then thinking, okay, how the front end is going to look like. So just what you're just showing is just, you know, it's a mock-up, but imagine someone using it and clicking, like, are the information in the right order? Is this the kind of window I want? Is there any information missing here? Because you want to get this right from the get-go, because it's really hard then to go back. So let's just get the mockups first, as good as possible, and create those dummies, so then you can simply just upload it and just say, that's what I need.
Yeah, like for me, like it's quite interesting because whilst I'll do mapping, flow maps and stuff like that, I find that when I've got a visual, I can move faster, right? I get better ideas. That's not going to work because if we do that, when you're documenting it all and you're writing these long documents and you're doing an overview of the scope and stuff, in theory, it sounds good, but then they go and build the prototype, which can also waste time. And then it's not functional. Do you see what I mean? Because there's many steps that you've missed because you've not had the ability to go, "Oh, okay, yeah, that looks, we'll change this bit here. What about a legend? We'll add a legend here to explain what this." So you'll see visually and you can generally get the ideas down. I think, you know, things like Figma and stuff are good, but it's having that middle ground where I'm at a stage where I can pretty much prompt what I want in terms of UI components without writing elaborate long prompts, because it's the system that you build behind it to make it easier to do those things. But yeah, it's fun, man.